everyone, welcome back to the Speak English Fluently podcast. I'm Emily.
And I'm Alex. We're super excited to have you back. If you're here to improve your English skills and dive into real-life topics, you've come to the right place. Today, we're talking about something everyone can relate to: procrastination.
Oh, absolutely. Procrastination is something we all struggle with, whether it's putting off work, delaying our goals, or just avoiding tasks we know we need to do. So, Alex, tell me, what's the last thing you procrastinated on?
Honestly, just yesterday, I was putting off replying to a few emails. I had a couple of important ones to respond to, but I kept finding other things to do, like checking social media or organizing my desk. It's crazy how easy it is to avoid tasks, even when you know they'll only take a few minutes.
I know what you mean. For me, it's always the bigger tasks, like writing or organizing something big. It feels so overwhelming at first, so I keep finding excuses to put it off. I think it's a mix of fear and lack of motivation, honestly.
You hit the nail on the head there, Emily. Fear of failure or fear of not doing something perfectly is a huge reason we procrastinate. A lot of times, we avoid starting a task because we're afraid it won't be good enough.
Exactly! And then we end up wasting so much time just thinking about it instead of actually doing it. I read somewhere that procrastination can be a form of self sabotage because it's like we're putting our own goals on hold out of fear or doubt.
It's a vicious cycle. The more we procrastinate, the more we feel stressed and anxious about the task, which makes us avoid it even more. And it's funny, because once you finally sit down and start, you often realize the task wasn't as hard as you thought.
Oh, 100%. It's like climbing a mountain in your head, but then when you start, it's just a hill. But why do you think we're wired to procrastinate in the first place?
Well, part of it comes down to how our brains work. When something seems unpleasant or stressful, our brains automatically try to avoid it, right? It's part of our survival instincts. But in modern life, it leads to procrastination.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think our brains are just trying to protect us from discomfort, but in the process, we end up hurting ourselves by putting things off. Another reason I procrastinate is because I feel like I need to be in the right mood to do something productive.
That's so relatable. The perfect mood syndrome. You think you'll be more focused or motivated later, so you push it off. But the truth is, that right mood rarely comes, and the task just keeps lingering there.
Totally. It's almost like waiting for inspiration to strike, but in reality, we just need to start, even if it's not perfect. Once we do, the momentum kicks in.
Exactly. And speaking of starting, I think one reason we procrastinate is because we don't break tasks down enough. If something feels too big or complex, we avoid it. But if we make it smaller and more manageable, we're more likely to start.
Oh, I love that. Breaking things down into smaller steps really helps. It makes the task seem less overwhelming. And when you get that first step done, you feel accomplished and ready to keep going.
For sure. And another thing I've noticed is that people often procrastinate because they don't prioritize. They jump from one task to another, thinking they'll get everything done, but nothing gets finished.
Oh, that's a big one. It's like multitasking. We think we can handle it all, but in the end, nothing gets our full attention. That's when procrastination sneaks in because we're not focused enough.
Absolutely. So, Emily, what's something you've done to try and combat procrastination? I know we all have our own little strategies.
Well, I've started setting small, specific goals for the day. Like, I'm going to write 500 words today instead of I'm going to write a blog post because the second one sounds way too intimidating.
I love that. Setting realistic, clear goals really helps with focus. Another thing I've tried is time blocking. I set a timer for a specific task, like 30 minutes of focused work, and then I get a short break after. It's like training my brain to work in bursts rather than dragging things out.
That's a great strategy. I think setting those boundaries helps make the work feel more manageable and less like an endless task.
Something I also realized about procrastination is how much it ties into perfectionism. We want everything to be flawless, so we keep putting things off instead of just doing them.
Oh, for sure. I've definitely been guilty of that. It's like we're so focused on getting everything right that we don't even start. But the truth is, the more we delay, the more we stress ourselves out.
Exactly. It's like this pressure builds up, and eventually we're in a time crunch, which makes us even more anxious. And you know what? I think a big part of procrastination is also about managing distractions.
Absolutely. Distractions are everywhere, whether it's your phone buzzing, social media notifications, or even just thoughts about something else. It's so easy to lose focus.
Oh, I feel that. Sometimes I'll start working, but then I check my phone for just a minute, and before I know it, an hour has passed. Time flies when you're distracted.
Yes, and it's so hard to get back into that flow once you've broken your focus. But one thing I've tried is turning off my phone notifications while working. It's a small change, but it really helps me stay on task.
That's such a good tip. I need to try that. And speaking of staying on task, do you ever find it hard to stay motivated when the end goal feels too far away?
Oh, for sure. When there's no immediate reward, it can be hard to keep pushing. Sometimes you need to create smaller rewards for yourself, like taking a short break or treating yourself to something nice once you've finished a task.
I agree. Little rewards go a long way in maintaining motivation, and I think celebrating small wins also keeps the momentum going. It's like a little pat on the back for doing the work.
Exactly. And even though procrastination is so common, it doesn't have to control us. If we're mindful of it, we can push through and find ways to get stuff done, even when we don't feel like it.
Definitely. Being aware of when we're procrastinating is half the battle. Once we identify it, we can take action to stop it before it gets out of hand.
Exactly. And I think it's important to be kind to ourselves when we do procrastinate. It's something we all deal with. It doesn't mean we're lazy or unmotivated, it's just part of being human.
I love that mindset. A little self compassion goes a long way. And before we wrap up, I think it's important to mention that procrastination is something we can all overcome with the right strategies and mindset.
Absolutely. Small steps, breaking tasks down, avoiding distractions, and being kind to ourselves, those are all key. And remember, progress, not perfection.
Absolutely, Emily. And it's important to remember that overcoming procrastination isn't something that happens overnight. It's about building better habits, little by little, and making adjustments as we go.
Right. And the key is consistency. We have to be patient with ourselves and keep trying different strategies until we find what works best for us. And even when we slip up, it's okay. Just get back on track and keep moving forward.
Exactly. One thing I've learned is that a lot of the time, the hardest part is just starting. Once we get going, things tend to flow more easily. But that initial push can be a real challenge.
Totally. It's like once you get through the hardest part, you realize it wasn't as bad as you thought, and then you feel motivated to keep going.
That's right. And that's why I love the idea of time blocking. It helps trick your brain into thinking you only have to focus for a short period, which makes it easier to start.
Yes, and it really helps you stay present with the task. There's something about having a set time to work that makes it feel more manageable. Plus, the reward of a break at the end keeps you motivated.
It's like setting boundaries for your time. You know exactly when you'll be working and when you'll be able to relax. That way, it doesn't feel like the task is taking over your whole day.
Exactly. And another thing I've tried is the Pomodoro technique. You work for 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break. It really helps keep you focused and makes the whole task feel less overwhelming.
I love that one. It's a great way to prevent burnout and keep your energy up throughout the day. Plus, Knowing that a break is coming up makes it easier to stay focused for that short stretch of time.
Exactly. And even though we all struggle with procrastination at times, I think it's important to remind ourselves that we're not alone. Most people face this challenge, and there's no shame in it.
Absolutely. It's all part of the human experience. What matters is how we deal with it and what we do to overcome it. And the more we practice, the better we'll get at managing our procrastination.
Right? The goal is progress, not perfection. As long as we're taking steps forward and learning from our experiences, we're doing just fine.
Couldn't agree more. And I think one final thing to keep in mind is that overcoming procrastination is about balance. We don't have to be productive all the time. It's about knowing when to rest and when to push yourself.
Exactly. Finding that balance is key to not burning out. We have to remember to take care of ourselves both physically and mentally. That's how we can stay motivated and productive in the long run.
Yes, and don't forget, progress may look different for everyone. Some days you'll make big strides, and other days it'll feel like you're taking baby steps. But as long as you're moving forward, that's what counts.
And as we said before, it's all about being kind to ourselves. Don't beat yourself up when you procrastinate. Just take a breath, reset, and get back to it.
Exactly. And with that mindset, we can conquer procrastination and achieve the things we've been putting off. So, here's to making progress step by step.
Cheers to that. And to everyone listening, thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of the Speak English Fluently podcast. We hope you found some helpful tips to overcome procrastination and stay on track with your goals.
Remember to download the PDF in the description with all the phrases and strategies we talked about today. Keep practicing, keep growing, and we'll be back with more great content next time.
Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Your support means the world to us.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Speak English Fluently podcast.